my little one-shot Tuesdays. What I'm trying to do here is set up a hopefully a regular kind of group that we can come together and play. Maybe not. I say one shots, but I'm never very good at doing just a one shot game. But maybe short games where we can play this for a little while, get your characters through a small story, and then move on to something else and try some different stuff. I'm a pretty avid gamer. I do tabletops of all different sorts, and I wouldn't mind as long as you guys want to stay, or if you guys just want to stay for this one shot and leave after it's done. That's okay too. But
This
definitely what I'm
seems like
trying
a
to do
fun
is
idea, but considering my time zone and my schedule, in the near future I might have work and it might be really problematic to play with you
understand.
guys.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah, like I said, if you want to just come for this one and play for this one and leave, that's fine. And then if maybe down the road another one pops up and you want to do that one, so it's totally up to you. And what I have room for. Um, as you guys can tell, this is going to be a zombie apoc using World of Darkness rules. A lot of people in the group. I don't know how familiar everybody is, but I know that there are several people in the group that never done the game before. So I'm going to be kind of teaching you as we go. The rule system is really simple, really easy to learn. It's a dice pool system using D10s. Very more of a cinematic type style than your traditional war game or miniature game. While we'll probably use maps and we'll probably use tokens of some nature, they'll be simply just to give you guys an idea of where everybody is and what they're doing. There is no real clear miniature rules for World of Darkness, so we'll probably be using that sparingly and estimated like movements and all that kind of stuff, just to simply keep it in a cinematic type of feel. You'll notice that on your character sheets, there are some stuff that is blank. For instance, you have no merits in the World of Darkness. A bigger game, merits matter a little bit more. In a zombie apocalypse, merits really have no purpose. Merits were stuff like contacts, allies, resources. In a zombie apocalypse, the contacts you have are the people who are surviving around you, so the other fellow players and whatever NPCs are in the game. There are fighting merits that could be useful, but since nobody here is really playing heavy warrior type characters, there was no point of even adding those in. I wanted everyday average people caught in the middle of a zombie situation. There are some other stuff that are a little different in my game. Normally in a World of Darkness, you have a stat, well, you have a willpower stat, and you can use willpower to help boost skills, which I'll explain in more depth when we get to actually playing. But to refill your willpower, you used your virtue and your vice in some way during the story. In this game, I have a house ruled, and obviously I can't modify these character sheets because somebody else created them. But my willpower is actually called something called hope, and it's made up of the same stuff willpower is, and basically does the same thing. But how you refill hope is a little different than how you refill willpower. Basically, when you do something that either saves the group's ass or saves your own ass, you refill a point of hope. So this demonstrates to your character, he's more hopeful of surviving. The more things he's accomplished, the more things he's gotten over, the more dangerous situations he's gotten out of. And obviously, he loses hope the more times he has to use hope to power his dice pool. So obviously, you're getting a dice pool. You fuel yourself with your hope to boost yourself over this hard task. So you start to lose a little bit of hope because, man, things are getting tough out here. That's the kind of concept behind it. Yeah, you'll notice there are some similarities between Exalted and this game. Exalted is a little more crunchy than World of Darkness, but it has some of the basic system similarities. To make a basic dice roll, so let's say you were going to fire a gun, okay? You combine an attribute with your skill. So if you have firearms and you have attributes, you add the amount of dots you have, and that makes your dice pool, and that's how many d10s you're going to roll. You want a a certain amount of successes to succeed, and you roll anything that is 8 or higher on a D10 is considered a success. If you roll a 10, not only is it a success, but it's called what's called an exploding die, meaning you get to re-roll it. And if it rolls another 8 or even another 10, that's an additional success added to the whole pool. Which don't stress out if that's confusing you right now or you're not following that. We'll go over that with the first rolls when we get to them, and I'll walk you through it then too. Right. Everybody's yeah, Exalted might be just a double success. So is everybody kind of I left your guys' characters. I gave you kind of a vague concept of what your character is. Whatever kind of holes you want to fill is completely up to you. You can make them have an elaborate background based off what you got here, or you can make it just what he is. What I've written is what he is, or her, for that matter. And that's up to you.
will have only one question.
Yeah.
Basically, I received the character that I'm playing with exactly what I asked for, paramedic. Just a question. I imagine we'll realize that very soon. But how far after the start of the zombie apocalypse are we playing? Like this is the day one, or like 28 days later, or something like that?
I'm glad you asked that because that is exactly what I was getting to next. We are going to officially, quote unquote, start 24 hours after the zombie has broken out, but there's this prelude area, and I'm going to allow you each to tell me what your character did during the period from when it first started, how they found out it first started, and then how they got to where the group is. And I'm going to describe where the group is, like as an opening scene. Think of it as a movie, and I'm going to try to do my best to describe as I can and get you guys into the setting. And then I'm going to let you each kind of come up with how you got to this point. And then if I can help fill in your holes if you got holes, or if you're not having a hard time coming up with something, I can make suggestions and help you get there with it. Okay, cool. So, where you guys are currently, the setting pans over downtown Chicago, which, if you don't know Chicago that well, you don't need to. It's a typical big, populated city. And you are in the heart of it. Probably the worst place to be.
Yeah, the last
during
place
a
we want
zombie
to be during
apocalypse.
zombie apocalypse.
Exactly. The city itself does not look normal. There's no cars driving on the streets. There's signs of distress and chaos. You see cars crashed into shops. You see telephone poles pulled down. You see emergency vehicles out and it looks like abandoned because you don't really see any people. It continues to pan over, and you see pamphlets of what used to be like dedicated barricade zones. Don't come, or no crossing, don't come this way. You see the actual cones and barricades of areas that somebody tried to set up. You see newspapers that talk about some sort of rioting that's going on across the nation. Nothing about zombies, though, because in this world, there were no zombie movies. There were no zombie books. Your concepts of what you guys as players know as zombies may not be exactly how these zombies in this game are like. So don't guarantee a headshot is going to get yourself a dead zombie. This all comes close towards and I'll actually give you guys a view here. It's going to be fuzzy for a second, but when it loads, it'll be clear.
Mm-hmm.
So this camera pans over this particular area, and then it starts to zoom in on this area right here that looks like a UPS warehouse. And it comes down and it comes down and it comes down. Obviously, I can't really zoom in on this map because I took a still shot, but it is a UPS truck, and the camera kind of goes inside the truck, and inside the back of this UPS truck are several survivors. Well, what you're going to come to know as survivors. They're panting, they're tired, they're half asleep, half awake with adrenaline exhaustion. And one thing you are noticing as the camera pans over each one of them, they look tired, terrified, and and yet they're being as quiet as possible. This is your guys' group. You have taken refuge through the night, through the 24-hour period since the breakout happened yesterday afternoon, inside this UPS truck. You've heard screams, you've heard crying, you've heard yelling, you've heard gunfire, you've heard all sorts of things, and every time you even have had additional survivors in this truck with you who either have crept out at one point and you have no idea if they made it or not, or maybe you even watched as they got torn apart as soon as they left the truck. Whatever happened to them made you feel like staying in this truck was the best idea at the time. Things have grown quiet through the early hours of this morning, and as time has kind of crept up into the early afternoon, it's almost dead quiet outside. Almost enough to give you a sense of maybe it's all over, or maybe, it's actually safe out there. So the camera's going to pan to each one of your survivors, and I'm going to let you guys go over it, and we're going to kind of go into a little bit of a random order here. So, Matt, why don't you start with Beth? How did Beth get into this particular situation?
All right. So I imagine if I can include like some sort of flashback prelude.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah.
So I imagine as I'm inspiring with Last of Us. So basically, when the apocalypse started, or maybe just before, because she's a paramedic. So I imagine she might have seen the first signs of something going on in the hospital, like spikes in admissions, some strange some kind of flu maybe. She was doing just her job, but she saw some signs, and then like immediately, suddenly, bam! Everything went to hell, and
So was she in the hospital when like the chaos started?
yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, she was very close to like hospital when the infected began to rise, I guess. And the first thing she did was to obviously try to help whoever she can, because she's wannabe hero, but sooner or later, probably sooner, she realized the futility of her efforts. So as I see that in equipment I have something like ambulance keys or car keys, so I imagine she might have just took one of the ambulances and just on the signal went straight to her husband, which is Jack Anderson. And after she got to him, well, she was trying to get out of the city, but obviously that failed.
Okay. So this brings the interesting part of the scene. So you race home after the chaos that just took place at the hospital. You're probably racing through the chaotic streets in an ambulance. Even though your siren's going, people are either behaving irrationally or they don't care that your sirens are going. You're bumping into cars, maybe even in your own horror, hit somebody, and you're not even sure if it was one of those infected things you saw at the hospital, or maybe it was a human. You don't stop. You're too terrified, and you realize the only person you need to get to is Jack. You race home. Jack, what were you doing at your house during this time of the breakout?
Watching the news, talk about some new kind of outbreak, anomalies and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. And so when your wife shows up, pulled up in the ambulance, you just ran in, got in there with her, and you guys both tried to make an escape?
Yeah.
Okay. And Matt, is it feasible that maybe you guys got on the freeway and on the way trying to get out, you got stuck in a traffic jam and maybe you had to abandon?
That's the most reasonable idea. That's what always happens in zombie apocalypses. Never take fucking highways.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and after we got together, all the decision making was left to Jack, because he was always the more of the brains type of guy in our duo.
Okay.
Like, he's the natural type leader. I know that as his wife. As his wife.
All right. So Jack, I assume at some point you guys abandoned the stranded ambulance and make it on foot. Did you guys make it to the UPS factory okay, or was there any events that took place between there and where you got to now?
The highway is close to the UPS factory, so yes, we got that okay.